Well, hi everyone, and thanks for sticking with us up until now. My name is Amitai. I'm the CEO of Pentera. For those of you that have seen me before, probably you've got the name. Those of you who joined us right now, I'm so excited and thankful for all of you that have came out of to attend the session today. I'm so excited and privileged to be running this fireside chat with a good friend and an industry expert, Hitesh Sheth from Vectra AI. Hitesh is the president and CEO of Vectra AI, a threat detection and response platform and the company behind Cognito. So happy to have you here today with us, Hitesh.
Real pleasure, Amitai. Thank you so very much for inviting me. Good to be here.
Cool, our pleasure. So Hitesh, why won't you first tell us a little bit about yourself and about Vectra AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, again, thank you to the Pentera team. Congrats on the name change. I think it's very fitting for what you guys do. And look, for the audience, Vectra is the best way I can put it is we are the market leading threat detection response platform. In so many ways, we are very, very complementary to what Pentera does in the marketplace. We have pioneered the use of AI to help customers detect and hunt advanced attacks in the environment. We very much focus on large enterprise companies. We've been around for it's about 9 years now. And I think in the investment community terminology, we are a late stage company at this point. So it's again, I think very complimentary to what Pentera does. So it's great to be here with you guys.
Thank you very much. Why won't I kind of start, get straight to the point and ask you a question that I'm sure you hear a lot from prospects and customers you speak to. I guess your team comes across the objection that people would say, we already have a next generation AV, a next generation EDR. We kind of feel quite well equipped with tooling when it comes to detection and response. I mean, why would you tell these guys as you speak to them and they feel kind of comfortable with everything around prevention and detection before they met with you guys?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And, it's not just like, hey, I have EDR or something on my endpoint. We often hear the notion that, prevention is the right strategy, and actually probably the more frightening thing that I hear sometimes is if I have firewalls, I'm good to go, right? Which I'm sure pretty much everybody in the audience here would kind of go, okay, it doesn't really, especially nowadays, it doesn't make sense. And that what you asked there, Amitai, was something we used to hear pretty frequently, maybe say 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But the market has changed pretty significantly. And I think there are two things here that is changing the customer's mindset. One is, with IoT devices, you really can't put agents on all those devices. So there's a threat surface exposure element here, which is very significant. And then with cloud, right? For those who are young enough in this audience or old enough in the audience, we are like circa Windows 95 in the cloud, right? Only it's going to be 1,000 times worse in terms of the attack surface. So I think customers have become very cognizant of the fact that between these two elements, EDR remains a critical part of their security strategy, but it is absolutely not enough to think that that's going to be the be all end all to contain advanced attacks.
Great. I mean, I would just reciprocate by saying that us at Pentera, we often meet with our customers and we kind of want to feel whether CISOs feel quite secure as we meet with them. And in often cases, when we talk about automated security validation, automated penetration testing, people say, yeah, I mean, we have Nessus. You guys are like Nessus on steroids. Or, yeah, we already have an OpenVAS or a Tenable or Rapid7 or Qualys. So people very often confuse vulnerability assessment, vulnerability management with pen testing and breach attack. So we hear that a lot, and I think that actually we love hearing that, and I'm happy we share the same kind of misperceptions about what we do. I think now less than before, but I think it's something that we get all the time, and one thing that we try to stand out with is the fact that we're agentless. We do not come in and deploy tons of agents in the network. Nobody likes agents. And the fact that we're doing a pragmatic job, so we're actually attacking the network for real, as opposed to settling for niceties and simulations of all sorts, or just surface static vulnerabilities of all sorts, we know by now that just surfacing static vulnerabilities, thousands of them, Windows Active Directory related, doesn't do the job, doesn't cut it. Unless something was exploited and has led to a crown jewel, then why even bother dealing with it? So
if you'd allow me, what I would say to anybody who is telling you that vulnerability assessment is equivalent or sufficient, I'm pretty sure everybody who was a headline recently in the press had some form of vulnerability assessment in the environment.
Exactly.
And so there's no better data point than actually what's being what's out there in the market. And if those folks had taken a proactive approach to having automated testing, pen testing the way Pentera does it, I think they would be in a far better position and probably would not have been a headline.
Yeah, and I'm happy you say that because 3 years ago when we went out to it and for the first time kind of went on a plane to promote what we do in North America, we were facing a certain reality where certain breach attack simulation players were talking to everyone about the need to do everything safe and sterile and in the lab, just kind of sterile simulative control validation. And when we came out and said, attack the network for real, just like the bad guys. So if the bad guys wouldn't deploy agents, we don't deploy agents. If the bad guys would move laterally and inject malware, we would do it as well. We didn't know how this would be perceived. We thought that people would think it's a bit brutal. But actually, we were very happy to realize that people appreciated the very blunt and the very real approach that we brought with us. And I think that you guys are the same to a large extent in your respective domain.
Yes, indeed. And I think the other element not to be underestimated is that I'm sure a lot of the audience here from the customer side are security practitioners. Either they're running SOCs, they are analysts, you're a CISO, and for especially the CISO and anybody here running the SOC, you have to report to the board on what your strategy is, and and it's not sufficient to kind of go, I've got just tooling to defend. You've got to find a way to demonstrate that. Look, in the event we were to get breached, right? We've got the right. We have tested our systems, that we know that what we have put in place is actually going to work, and to make sure that it's actually going to work, you have to do the kind of automated red team testing that we're discussing here.
Great. So Hitesh, another follow-up question to what you said before. I'm just very intrigued. So the EDR business has been booming. We've seen CrowdStrike and their amazing evolution for the past 4 years from south of $1 billion to approaching 50 billion in valuation, surpassing Palo Alto as the biggest cybersecurity company in the world today. So when you go to a typical kind of customer setting, and for the CISOs among us, thousands of them from all over the world, that say, what comes first, EDR, NDR? Do we have to get both? Isn't EDR sufficient? Because we have all these fancy names promoting EDR here, and I mean, how would you go about this, EDR, NDR? What comes first? Why?
Yeah, look, it's a very fair question. It's a question we encounter all the time. By the way, CrowdStrike is about 57 billion, but who's counting? Who's counting?
I just didn't refresh the page.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you for refreshing.
But to the question you're asking, I'll probably the best way to explain this is in the context of a real customer, right? So for the folks on the call over here, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, Sanofi, is a big customer of ours. And and this is on our website, so this is nothing that I'm disclosing that's confidential at this point. But they had a major cyber event last year, and in that cyber event, and so they're a very sophisticated shop. They have EDR. They also had a encrypted way of basically calling it proxy in the cloud to get to their assets in the data center. They had us in the data center, and the attack was able to bypass their EDR on their endpoints pretty easily. And the way ultimately they were able to contain the attack was a combination of things they saw, even though it bypassed the EDR, but most importantly, they saw the stuff inside the data center where we sat. And so, and for this customer, the CISO, the big learning for this individual, which I think plays out for the rest of the enterprise, is that this is not an either or which comes first. It's honestly, you got to do these two things together, because very logically, if you've got the right kind of detection response built out for EDR plus, data center cloud, you've really covered, because in there, data center cloud, you're going to cover IoT devices. You really covered your attack surface. So it doesn't make much sense to just do one half without really addressing the other half here. And that is a shift we are seeing happening in the market and the customer's mindset very, very rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I mean, talking about public data, so I think it's anyone that Googles could see that we're both at the NHS in the United Kingdom. This is public as
Correct.
well. And I would just like to say that when we heard what you guys do, you guys were there first, and these guys, they love you over there at the NHS in the UK. When they heard what we do and having you already installed, for them it was a no-brainer, because you guys are the kings of lateral movement detection in the network, and Pentera comes in trying to move laterally, perform real exploitations, inject malware, relay attacks, etc. And you guys being able to identify that, that's a big deal, because think about it from the security practitioner standpoint. You just click on play and you just enjoy the show, and you don't have to deploy red teamers that are very costly to test whether the Vectra or the Exabeam or the Splunk, whether they actually work, because this machinery is passive by default. It doesn't do anything unless something actually happens. So I think that this combination between our companies of us on the one hand attacking the network for real, and you guys identifying it, showing value, and the practitioner just sits and watches, I think is crazy.
I completely agree, and I think there are two things that are important to note for customers in this audience here. One, I don't know of any security team that is not understaffed. So when you have this high degree of automation between the offense scenario and the defense scenario, and it comes together to kind of demonstrate the robustness of your security strategy, that's a great outcome for the customers. Secondly, from a customer point of view, and you look at Pentera and Vectra, this relationship makes each of us better, right? We are chasing each other a little bit here, which is we want Pentera to be aggressive in putting the most effective offense they can put in place. And in Pentera's interest, they want us to be aggressive in putting the most robust defense in place. And as we iterate and do a good job, the beneficiary really here is a customer.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Now, the topic of the hour, and I guess we're all reading the news, and our customers are talking about it all the time, is ransomware. Not anymore a problem of Equifax or Capital One. It's now a problem of any supermarket and any law firm, big or small, in any country, America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia. It's all over the place, and it's not anymore vicious nation states. It's those script kiddies and the small groups and the big groups. What would be, Hitesh, your top kind of 3 tips for a security practitioner that ask themselves, am I ransomware ready?
3 things. I would suggest 3 things. The very first point is you've got to have attack surface coverage. So, coming back to the earlier discussion of is it NDR, is EDR, I would say to anybody, have NDR and EDR. Right. I'm not going to tell anybody that, look, one or the other is enough, because it's really not. You've got to have both. That's number 1. Number 2, have a strategy and a plan in place for automated red team testing, because you want to make sure that the tools you're deploying are actually going to work. And there's no better evidence of that than having automated red team testing. Number 3, with that said, you've got to make sure you've got robust backup and restore capabilities. Okay, because I think at the end of the day, that is the smart thing to do. And then the final thing I'll say to you is that if you're not willing to do these 3 things, go get a bunch of insurance, because you're going to need it.
So how do you, with that kind of optimism in mind, how do you see the evolution of ransomware in the coming years? How do you guys look at that at Vectra AI?
I think, look, the thing that is frightening about ransomware is that it is such a reliable business model, right? I joke in a very dark way about that. If somebody could form a company that was legitimate on ransomware, it would get a very high valuation, because it's predictable growth and a high growth, right? I think that's just the hard reality of ransomware. The thing that should keep us all awake is that as we talk about using AI on the defense side, AI is getting used on the offense side as well. And so the folks who are innovating on when it comes to ransomware are using AI will continue to enhance the use of AI. That's number one. The second thing to keep in mind on ransomware and the evolution of ransomware is that the attack surface is growing exponentially. So especially when you think about cloud assets in particular, I think the opportunities are going to be pretty limitless for the folks who are innovating on the ransomware side to find new ways of getting in. And I think if I'm the CISO, right, the 3 points that we discussed just on the previous question on a strategy have to be part and parcel of what we do when it comes to security. There are very few topics that get discussed at a board level. Security has been one that's been around for the last few years, but it's really interesting that even within security and attacks, ransomware itself has taken on a unique kind of positioning thing inside the board. And board members are extremely worried. Some are very, very scared about this. And so I think it really behooves us to be mindful that there's a ton of innovation going on the attack side when it comes to ransomware. All of us here on the defense side better have equivalent innovation going on and not be stuck in solutions that were 10 years old.
So first of all, I couldn't agree with you more, and I just would like to add an anecdote on what you said before about how amazing of a business ransomware is, had this been a legit business. So another way to read the data that shows that by the end of 2021, ransomware payouts would exceed 20 billion, and that Maze, being one of the main ransomware groups, their average payout is $420,000. I guess we would both like to manage a company with a total addressable market of $20 billion and an average deal size of $420,000 per event. So that is quite crazy. And I think that, kind of following your style in your company and your leadership, that you've always been listening to your customers and progressed cognitive based on what you heard. We try to kind of replicate what leaders like you and others do in the industry. And we've just launched what we call ransomware ready capabilities. That means that Pentera would not just be automated penetration testing and automated security validation in a generic way, but if you only care about just testing yourself against the latest ransomware attacks, including taking over a host, then kind of encrypting data, exfiltrating data to a real IOC out there, this whole thing is going to be available by Pentera in the next few weeks. And that is something we're very, very proud of. When we've started this company, when Arik Liberson started it 6 years ago, I don't think that he ever thought that one day there was actually going to be a module that's going to replicate ransomware, step by step, and not just security validation, generally speaking. So we're very excited about that, and I hope it's going to add lots of value to the people on the call.
I think that's fantastic, and I think it's much needed. I think Pentera is in many ways for automated any kind of red team testing. And I think we talk about ransomware today. It could be something else, a year from now. It's the right company at the right time, and I'm super excited about our partnership as well.
Excellent, thank you. So thank you very, very much, Hitesh. I just kind of want to thank the audience once again for staying with us, and I really wish you guys an enjoyable rest of Xposure. We're kind of halfway done, and once again, thank you, Hitesh, and best of luck.
Thank you, Amitai. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All the best.
Bye now. Bye.